so he's the host, grandmaster, energizer bunny, right? Behind this Boston Blockchain Week, and co-founder and executive chair of QUBIC Labs, right?
Is there anything you don't do?
Oh, also wait, there's one more. Quincy City Councilor.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I take out the trash at this event as well. Yeah.
Well, thank you for inviting us to Quincy. I live in the town next door in Milton. I always like to say I may live in Milton, but I eat and shop in Quincy. So, and it's great to see Hancock Street transformed.
Well, pertinent to this discussion, spending your dollar here in the city of Quincy is important, which is why we host events like Boston Blockchain Week. So.
Yeah, no, it's great. I was telling someone that earlier that, you got a little Somerville going on here, right?
We do, yeah, I think so. There are definitely some components of Somerville, Cambridge. I think we're trying to take the best of, not only around Greater Boston, but from places we've been around the world, and bring it to Quincy so that we can do things like stimulate economy and create jobs through blockchain.
Anyways, I think you guys are well on your way. So,
absolutely.
Okay. So we're talking about workforce development and the labor market with blockchain and Web3. We got a half an hour. We'll try not to go over. Wait, actually, I think the other panel took a few minutes from us. So, as all of you know, the economy is very weird. All right, and we have a lot of tech companies laying off people. We even have biotech companies laying off people. So what's the hiring picture for Web3 and blockchain? Ian, why don't you start off seeing what are you seeing?
Sure. So I can talk about it from the perspective of what we're doing at QUBIC Labs. So as I've mentioned multiple times, and you'll continue to hear throughout the course of the program, is that we started QUBIC Labs with the idea of generating economic development and creating jobs through the adoption of blockchain technology. What we found, obviously the environment's changed over the past 3 years. We've been fortunate to put together public-private partnerships and to work with organizations like Massachusetts Technology Collaborative to deploy capital into founders, into teams, in order to, support pilots and MVPs and see what can really come out of this blockchain and Web3 environment, especially in the aftermath of what we've seen in the prior couple of years. So, we're really at the forefront. We're at early stage. We're giving out $25,000 grants to folks and saying, hey, we'll give you a runway of 3 to 6 months. If you can prove out a concept, we have private capital to backstop that. We'll evaluate your business plans with the idea that we'll support a seed stage, partner with our co-capital partners in order to support that growth, and then in turn, job creation. And I think, a lot of the things that we've seen sort of thankfully is that the froth has started to wash away with a lot of the speculative nature of the space. And what we're really trying to focus on is identifying real world applications that are scalable and actually pertinent, creating value, whether operationally or true commercial value in businesses.
And are you still seeing companies interested in, or I guess entrepreneurs interested in taking the grants and starting companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So we rolled this program out 9 months ago, just after the last Boston Blockchain Week. Yeah. We've supported 9 companies so far, but that's separate from the other blockchain and Web3 companies that we've been supporting over the past 2.5, 3 years. Yeah. So, the numbers are still to be proven. I think in the thesis that we put together, the idea was that we would take a look at about 30 to 45 different concepts through the deployment of a $2 million grant. Yeah. The idea of creating approximately 10 to 15 companies out of those concepts that we see through trial and error. And then on the back end, we would see, at least in the near term, somewhere around 60 jobs. And that's a 2-year program.
Jason, what are you seeing from your vantage point?
What we're seeing is a continued interest in tech jobs overall. It can be kind of challenging to get to the granularity of blockchain industry statewide. A lot of the data aggregators, a year or two ago, it was fashionable to say you'd throw blockchain in on your job description. That's kind of gone back burner now. Now every job description is an AI job, and we know that they're not, just as we knew they weren't before. I mean, what we do know, though, is that while there's been shifting in the tech sector, one of the more credible places we look for data has sort of quantified last year net tech jobs did have a small increase, about 1.5%. Now, these aren't huge numbers. I mean, that translates to about 5,000 people. So I'm not, painting a rosy picture, but it is not negative. They continue, that same source is expecting about 2.75% growth this year. So it's gradual. I think that we're seeing a realignment in the tech sector. And then as we dig in with a little more granularity, the proxies that are probably closest to blockchain in these data sets, looking at things like database and emerging tech, sort of those subsets, they're looking at about a 3 to 4% growth rate for 23. So it's still going positive.
If you could just jump in, from a macro point of view, and I'm a policymaker, not an expert like these guys, but we see, if you look at the data for Massachusetts, there's about 100,000 folks looking for work according to the most recent data, and there's about 220,000 job openings. So it's clear we have a labor force participation rate is down, and so we hear about some of these tech companies that are doing some limited downscaling, but there's all these other folks looking for work, and so it's clear from my point of view as a policymaker, we need to really focus our dollars on reskilling and upskilling our workforce because we have a limited workforce, and so whether it's doing that or tapping into underrepresented pools of workers, people who may not have traditionally been in the blockchain space or in the tech space, and so that's what we're trying to do as policymakers, and that's why I come to these events is I want to kind of learn from you all what we can be doing better to try to make sure we have the workforce that we need for the future, because we know that blockchain, like AI, like robotics, like quantum, and other things that I don't even understand, are emerging technologies, and we want to make sure that Massachusetts continues to be a leader and that we're poised and have the workforce to accommodate that need.
Representative Cutler, you have a bill, right, at the State House.
I have a bill.
I was actually surprised. It was specifically for blockchain workforce development. Talk about why you're sponsoring a bill like this.
Sure, yeah, thanks, Shirley. So I'm the chairman of the Labor and Workforce Development Committee in the legislature, the House chair, but I also work with Representative Kate Lippert-Garabedian, who's a familiar face here, and we're the co-chairs of the House's Blockchain Technology Caucus. Ian has been a great supporter, and Jason and Mass Tech and folks in that nature, and we started that last session, as a way to try to, educate ourselves and our colleagues about blockchain technology. We know that Massachusetts already has, an emerging and successful sector, but we also know that we have the sort of tools here to be a real player and a powerhouse in this. We have, the academic institutions, MIT, we have the talented workforce, and so we just need to make sure that we're sort of nurturing that industry like we've done in the past with, say, like biotech, which has become a, mega successful billion-dollar industry, because we made, as policymakers, we took concrete steps to kind of support that, and we continue to do that. And so we wanted to see us kind of do that with blockchain. And so that led to the legislation. Thank you for giving me the plug on the bill. I always try to do that. That I filed along with Representative Lippert-Garabedian to create a career training fund just to focus on blockchain technology. It would do a lot of different things, but it would basically direct our Department of Career Services, Commonwealth Corporation, and the Department of Labor to come up with some training programs for blockchain technology, both like adult certificate type of programs, but also encouraging our career centers to dig into that, and even going down into the VOTech schools and making sure that that's part of their curriculum. It would also, and I think it's important, I don't want to dominate the discussion with these great panelists, but measure some of the demographic data and how we're doing in terms of making this a diverse workforce. Measuring gender, racial categories, so we're ensuring that this workforce is reflective of the population as a whole. I'd like to say you can't change something that you don't measure, and so that's sort of the first step.
So Ian, from your vantage point, what are the hardest jobs to fill in the blockchain industry?
I think the top jobs I think that are looking to be filled are more technical in nature. So you're hearing a lot of people who, this is inside baseball. Most of you people probably come from the space. You just heard a very technically focused panel talking about protocols. Those jobs are in demand. We get people that come to us with concepts and ideas who have potentially never managed a technical product development before, right? Mm-hmm. And so we need to help them to identify technical partners in order for them to actually build out what they intend to as a business. Mm-hmm. So I'd say technical in nature. And even just connected to what some thoughts that had just come out from my colleagues over here is that there's no unified or sort of direct dots being connected between education and the workforce, right? Most of these people either probably were technologists, tinkerers, had become developers through educational pathways on their own, but there's not necessarily a comprehensive blockchain curriculum, both technical and non-technical, to support the talent pipeline, right? That could be necessary for the jobs that we're seeking to create.
So do you need, I mean, on one level, if you're like if you're a software engineer, won't you be highly desirable in the blockchain market? But do you need one more layer? Do you need a specialty track to get into blockchain? Yeah, talk about a little bit about that.
It's all about language, right?
Yeah.
So if you know certain languages that are applicable for particular blockchains, then yes, you're going to be more desirable than others, depending on the project and the complexity of all these projects that people are focused on.
Right.
But I think that what we saw in the prior iteration of the market generally is that people could go and self-train and potentially get a certificate that would allow them to come out with a six-figure salary, in the bull market. Now on the other side, a lot of the speculation has gone away. The sort of gold rush that we saw everyone flood to Miami. Now is the time for us to take advantage of our natural competitive advantages with education and capital here in the Northeast, where we might be a little bit slower, but in the long run, we will certainly prevail in order to take full advantage of supporting this industry in the way that we seek it to grow.
So are the colleges and universities here equipped to train the blockchain workforce, or they need Josh Cutler's bill?
Both? Yeah, I was going to say both. Yeah, probably both. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, Jason, or if you want to take that on.
I think there's different points of integration across the systems. We have some places that are going to be very strong, kind of in the coding components, being able to do that. One of the other things that we're starting to see is interest in some colleges, universities, in sort of the applied blockchain. We have an investment working with a team at WPI right now, really trying to figure out how do you expand the use of blockchain with an eye towards some social equity and touch businesses that aren't blockchain native. So working with businesses that have have interesting data that lends itself to this kind of technology, where really the blockchain is the enabling traceable technology. So they've done some work last year trying to cross those bridges. And one of the things that we've learned that is kind of exciting to me and challenging too is that their approach is not just the tech focus. They brought kind of the whole wraparound, realizing that for as much as we need people who can code and build the blockchain, we need the tech translators who can take this to non-native people and understand that blockchain is the enabling tool. It doesn't have to be the headline. It can be the quiet thing underneath. And so they're wrestling with all of that in some pretty exciting ways. So I think there's interest and pockets across a lot of our universities that we can unleash. And I think one of the other things that we see across a lot of our other disciplines is there's a really strong opportunity. I'm looking out to everybody here who's in the space now, whether you're a student or your business. One of the things that so many of our college and universities are looking for are capstone projects. As they move toward capstone projects for students to get real world experience. If they don't know you, they're never going to connect you with a capstone project. So, think about building those relationships. That's one of those sort of on-the-ground pieces where we can really move workforce forwards.
Sure, can I jump in on that point? We just came, my crew and I just came from a visit to the North Atlantic Carpenters Association in Dorchester to tour and learn more about their apprenticeship program. And I bring that up because I think even though it's a much different technology than blockchain, they have an amazing apprenticeship program. It's really well done. And well populated. And I think we need to think about colleges and universities, but also alternatives to that. And I think apprenticeships really offer that. And we're seeing increasingly, obviously people think of apprenticeships in the building trades. That's sort of the natural inclination. But increasingly we're seeing tech companies that are adopting the apprenticeship model. We toured one in the Seaport earlier this session, and I think a lot of companies are starting to do that and see the value in that, especially in such a tight labor market as we have today. And so we want to, from a legislative point of view, really encourage that and I have another bill on apprenticeships, which I won't belabor the point on, but I think, and the state has a registered apprenticeship program today in which if you have an apprenticeship program, you can register it with the state and, and help to publicize it, get the word out. And, I think that's a wonderful model to follow. So we're not always thinking about colleges and universities, which are obviously important, but, looking at the apprenticeship model too. And I think that could apply to blockchain just as well.
Jason, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit, the where you work, the Tech Collaborative. It's a quasi-state agency, and there's a new governor, Maura Healey. And there's also she has her economic secretary, Yvonne Howe. Turns out you've known Yvonne a very long time, and because one of the questions I wanted to ask Jason was, well, where is the Healey administration on this? Where is Economic Secretary Yvonne Howe on blockchain?
Yeah, I think we're lucky to have an administration that is enthusiastic about tech in general, and I think that's been really clear from the outset for us. And yes, I've known Secretary Howe for years. We were classmates together in college, so we both bring that sort of broad liberal arts perspective to all of economic development.
She came from a tech background.
And
she came from PillPack.
Yeah. PillPack was sort of this amazing tech expansion quickly, and I think so. She's very comfortable in that space.
Yeah.
One of the other great things that we've seen early on is this administration recognized we have amazing capabilities in the Commonwealth in technology. One of the places we've been lagging is sort of grabbing our share of federal funds. And early on, the administration was really hands-on, joining with us, making a full court press on pursuing some of the CHIPS and Science funds, initially in semiconductors. And I can actually point out earlier today, Department of Defense announced their first 8 awardees, and Mass Tech received $19.7 million in that for the Commonwealth for semiconductors.
Breaking news, by the way.
Breaking news. Not blockchain. Not blockchain, but I offer that as sort of a symbol of this administration being all in. And in that work, there are like 90 some partners. The governor and the secretary were hands-on with our team through that. We're pivoting now to some new work in EDA tech hubs, and there's been some strong interest there in sectors. So I think we're well situated over this term with an administration that gets it.
I want to just take a different perspective. Of course, we appreciate the work that we're doing with Mass Tech and are grateful for that. I think Massachusetts is missing an opportunity. I think we suffer from a bad PR problem, especially around innovation and entrepreneurship, where there are places that people will gladly pick up and move from here to go to because they think it's a more favorable environment for entrepreneurship and innovation, or there might be more capital, or it's seasonal you can't do anything about, and you have to deal with that. But I think that from a public relations perspective, we could do a much better job as a state to outwardly communicate that this is a place to start a business. We just went through, and you would understand this, the ballot initiative on the millionaire's tax.
Yes.
That's a huge hindrance to some folks for deploying capital, supplying capital to entrepreneurs, and even a deterrence for some people to start their businesses because of the future potential outcomes on a tax basis. Right. So I think that there are plenty more things that we could do, designing incentive packages to attract entrepreneurs, and then to do on top of that, if we're talking about blockchain specifically, the grant that we received was the first that Massachusetts had made in a prior administration. There's plenty more opportunities to form and to grow these public-private partnerships in the way that you're using public capital up front, and you're basically matching up many multiples of private capital to support that growth, just as we did with life sciences a decade plus ago, right? And that takes a collaboration and much more of a capital commitment.
I mean, let's stay on this topic because I've read several statistics that say that, of course, we have lots of colleges and universities here. We probably educate an disproportionate number of people with, software engineering degrees and technical talent, but they don't stay here beyond a year or two. They come to school here and they leave. So how do we keep more of them here? One is passing tax relief, right? That's your job.
I'm just going to jump in with that. But
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to talk about tax relief, right? And so let's talk about that, tax
so I was
relief.
going to say, we're talking about the Healy administration. I will echo what Jason said. They've been fantastic to work with. And one of the things the governor has sort of led with is competitiveness and
Right.
making Massachusetts, more competitive. And that's been, she's been talking about that quite a bit, the Healy-Driscoll administration. And we have a tax relief package that has been passed by both branches, not to get into the legislative weeds, and still in a conference committee. But, so it's going to get done. And that includes, a big change to the estate tax, which is something, I do hear occasionally from folks who are thinking about where do they do business. That does have an impact, especially, pass-through entities can be impacted by the estate tax. So, we're looking at that and really raising the threshold so that it doesn't hit the middle-class folks the way it might be today. So, and it includes some other things, renters deductions, including other things, trying to make us more cost competitive, because I think there's a recognition about what Ian is saying. Certain things, we can't fix the weather, but we can fix other things. And I think Massachusetts is a wonderful state. We have our skilled workforce is really our natural resource. I like to say we don't have vast oil reserves or natural minerals like some other states. We have our skilled workforce, and that's what attracts people to here. And so, investing in our workforce, but also making sure we remain competitive is, I think, is the sort of the twin pillars of being attracting business.
But what about fixing or doing things about the culture that would keep young kids here? I mean, it's so expensive to live here. The T never works. So I mean, what about that aspect of life, here? I mean,
I'll just speak to the cultural aspect. I think generally, that's what we learned over the past few years in this space is that people were running off to other places. We trained them all. We were top, 3 producer of the talent, and then we're top 7 consumer of that talent. And I'm sure that those numbers have changed over the past couple of years. But I mean, this is an effort to try to make the space a little bit cooler in the Northeast, right? It's a second-year effort on our part, but it's something. It's taking a seed that exists elsewhere, planting it, and letting it grow and thrive, because that's what's needed for people in this space, to feel welcome, to feel like it's a community. And then the T, that's your level. I just got a notification. I mean, no, it's ridiculous. We're at Quincy here. We're in such a great position to Boston. We got 4 stops in the Red Line, access to all major highways, and I just get a notification that for the next 2 weekends it's going to be shut down. And so, and then on top of it, there's a requirement now for transit-oriented development by the thousands to be built in transit-oriented districts. Okay, by MBTA stations.
Yeah.
And I don't know why you're going to build thousands of apartments next to areas that doesn't have an operable public transit system.
Yeah.
So that's a huge problem, and that requires capital investment. But at least if, again, it's about communications, about public relations. This is about communicating that we're going to make these necessary improvements to make our state more palatable for any sort of tech entrepreneur, not just blockchain.
Well, let me, where to begin? No, I would just add, I agree with what Ian says, and the MBTA is a frustration, and
the millionaire's tax is going to fix the T.
Oh, right.
Well, Ian, I will defend the millionaire's tax. That funded universal school lunches for every kid in Massachusetts. It's a price I'm willing to pay, and I am not someone who's paying extra because of the millionaire's tax. But what I would say is, just we changing laws is, I would say is like sort of the easy part, but changing attitudes can be more difficult. And I agree with Ian that, I'm the least cool guy up here, but I think, that factor that you're trying to do here is so important. And I'll say, one of the reasons we started the blockchain caucus in the legislature is just trying to change the attitudes. I think because, people have this perception because we have, some of our elected officials at the federal level, are perceived as not being friendly to blockchain and other technologies. And so we wanted to make sure that wasn't something that the Massachusetts legislature, sort of became part of. And so we've tried to educate people. And I think, in small ways we've achieved that. But obviously there's a lot of work to be done. But I think it's a wonderful place to live. I'm a South Shore guy, so I love Quincy too. My district is Marshfield, Pembroke, Hanson, Duxbury area. So I'm in this area a lot. And I think it's a great place to live and work and raise a family. But I recognize that for folks who are starting out, it's impossible to find housing. It's really challenging, and we need to do a better job. And I think there's a broad recognition from the Healy administration, from everybody, from Governor Baker before that we need to do that. And I think we're trying to take steps like the transit-oriented development to make that to do a better job and bring in more housing. So a lot of work to be done. I'll try to come up with a bill for each of those things. and we'll be we'll be on it. I'll work with Ian.
I'm almost disappointed you made me remember that our federal legislators in Massachusetts are actually antithetical to this entire space, which does not do us any favors.
Well, so let me just defend Senator Markey because I think he's been
I
great.
I won't bring him up.
He's been great on
There's a particular senator that talks
issues.
about building an anti-crypto army. And I do not think that that's advantageous to Massachusetts towards an industry. And I don't know how it actually helps her get votes. I don't realize how many people are actually anti this space that it's going to get her votes. But that doesn't help emerging tech. It doesn't help economic development or jobs. And that can be transposed to other types of emerging tech. If we're not favorable to blockchain, why would we be favorable to AI or machine learning? So.
Well, that's why I think mass tech having no, I'm not trying to bring you to, having a quasi like mass tech is important. Doing events like this and all of you as sort of ambassadors and diplomats for the industry, and all the great things Ian's doing. I mean, and it's not all you, and you have a great group of folks here, but I'm really impressed. And, I think we need to do more of this, and it's great that you're
No, we love the state level. Yeah, and we love the local level, too, because you can be
Those
nimble.
city councilors can be difficult to deal with, though.
So we have about 5 minutes left, and so I will open it up for questions. I'll ask one more question, and then will there be a mic passed around? Okay, can I ask one question? One question, I'll go. So real quickly, so if people who are being trained here or who started here are moving away, which cities or markets pose the biggest competition to, I guess, Boston blockchain workers retaining and keeping that kind of talent, and what are they doing right? Why are people going to those markets? Anybody want to take that on?
So the first one I'd say Miami. That's just been over. They took circumstantial. It was a COVID and capital. People moved down to Florida.
Yeah, where there's no income tax.
Also true.
Yeah.
But also during the the more favorable crypto market, people moved to Puerto Rico to for a more favorable tax environment. But Miami certainly, Austin more favorable. People moved to California. We had in a report that people were moving to Illinois, which was more favorable for Illinois, which I don't know why. And then New York, which is sort of hit or miss depending on there's banking side of it. They've got sort of things against mining operations, but people still move to New York City because there's capital there and it's a more favorable environment.
So we'll take this question here. Go ahead. Is there a mic or? Here comes. He's got a Bitcoin shirt on.
Hi, thanks for being here, sharing such valuable information, and for doing
Speak a little louder.
Yeah. I said thanks for being here, for sharing valuable information, for doing the work that you all are doing. I appreciate it. My question is, if the state of Massachusetts wants to promote the importance and usefulness of the blockchain, do you all see value in the state itself using blockchain tech in a forward-facing manner, such as tokenizing property records or blockchain voting, etc.?
Good question.
I'll grab that. Yeah,
All right.
thank you. And so it's funny. I'm sorry. What was your name? Ben. So in our blockchain caucus, we've been talking about a lot because one of our goals is to come up with sort of a demonstration project because we have a lot of colleagues that still don't fully grasp what it is, and so we've looked at that. And we haven't come up with the solution yet, and I'm open to grab me afterwards if you have that. But I do think some of the things you talk. I know the city of Boston has some applications that they've used. I've seen blockchain used for a convention as a voting mechanism. So I think there's some cool applications out there, and the private sector is way ahead of us in terms of finding those. And so that's one of the things I think we're trying to do from as a public sector, trying to learn from what you all are doing. So I would love to come up with something like that. It's something that has to go through the legislative process, and it's not something I can just snap my fingers and do. But I think we would really love to see that happen.
Questions.
There's actually just a comment. So tomorrow there are two very pertinent panels to your question that discuss real-world applications like that. So one will be focused on municipal bonds on chain, and another will be focused on real estate tokenization.
I apologize. Don't finish your thing.
Yeah,
I have one more.
not at all. But both of those are touching, at least in these cases, local and county level government. And so, from our perspective, we view it as important as to come up through the grassroots level to gain that adoption, because sometimes there's education at the statewide level, bureaucracy, red tape that make it a little more difficult. But if you can prove it locally and sell that to other cities and towns, there's a better appetite, I think, to spread it around to the state.
Ben, I just remembered, sorry to interrupt you. I just remembered, so one of my colleagues has a bill actually to use blockchain for property records. That's an active bill that's being considered at the State House today. So.
And it's actually charged us with figuring out the demonstration project for that. So,
So we're working together.
Is there another question from the audience? We got like a
We're at
minute
zero, but
left.
Yeah,
Anything else? No? Wait, no.
Just write something and have
Is that it?
I think we got it.
Wait,
all the
are
hard
you no? Are you just standing, or you?
He's,
do you have a
he's
question?
waving so he can get on stage next.
Any other questions? Any other? Okay, should we end it? Or okay, all right, great. Well, that was it. Thank you, Ian,
Thank you, Shirley.
Representative Cutler, Jason, and thanks for having us.